think we'll start this off with how I first met you. My interaction with you was with a client that was based in Chicago, and you were a consultant for them, and we're rolling out Cloudflare Enterprise Services. And within 30 seconds of a conversation, it was clear to me that you far exceeded even our expertise at the time of what the true potential of Cloudflare Enterprise and ZTNA technologies could really be. And we pride ourselves in the standpoint of offering that solution stack to our customers that 99% of the providers don't even have access to the tool set. But your understanding of how to really manage, manipulate, and configure that stack, and to really elevate our needs with this client in Chicago, customizing that solution, which in turn has now become a root of our base package that we offer to our customers, was very impressive. And so that was my interaction with you. And the thought in my mind was, how could we ever one day attract him to Verdant? And you had a deep relationship with our president, who's also our CISO, Sandeep Patel. And I'm sure that's a big part of it. But why are you here with Verdant? I'm really appreciative, and I just can't believe that we've been able to attract talent like you and Sandeep and Hit. What made you want to come work for Verdant and help us out?
I remember that situation. We were looking to actually roll out Cloudflare Zero Trust as a demo or a proof of concept to show to leadership there that there was a better way to secure their environment. Something better than the traditional VPN where you were allowing in pretty much everybody at that company and you didn't really control their access after that. Was it possible to control their access? Yes, you could create ACLs to control access, but it was very difficult to manage.
And you're still dependent on the end user to start it.
Exactly, yes. And so with Zero Trust, you can go a step further, right? You can look at, for example, the device posture that individual is using. Do they have up-to-date software? Do they have up-to-date definitions for their security software, right? And so, we wanted to demo this for that particular client. And you mentioned my relationship with Sandeep. He was actually working for that company at the time. And unfortunately, we were never able to demo it the way I wanted to.
Yeah, they sold to a venture capitalist and priorities changed, right?
Priorities change really quick. And, you brought something up earlier, access to the tool set, which is important. But there's something even more important than that, I think, and that's the implementation of that tool set. And the one thing I noticed at this VC is that they did have access to Cloudflare, but they didn't have it implemented properly. And what I mean by that was they put Cloudflare in front of their services, but then they left all these back doors open.
They didn't deeply integrate it.
They didn't. And you were able to then bypass those Cloudflare services, get directly to the endpoints, and try to do your own penetration at that point. Cloudflare is not helping you at all, right? So what I think is even more important than having access to that tool set is properly deploying it. So I was talking to Sandeep about this opportunity at Verdant, and he mentioned how you guys were making a big push towards Cloudflare, securing services with Cloudflare. And I was really interested to finally be in that position where a company's motivated to move forward with Cloudflare and do it in the right way, right? Not just access to the tool set. We do we hide your IPs behind DNS, but if someone finds your IPs, they can still get directly to them. No, let's lock that down too. In fact, we had a conversation at the end of last week, the authenticated origin polls, if you remember, where we can lock down those endpoints and not allow people to bypass Cloudflare.
That is a great example. We do have a secure WordPress hosted solution stack that's built on a open Lightspeed infrastructure. But yeah, we were talking about how to enhance, and actually the Verdant site was under brute force attack, which is very common on the WordPress admin site. And, we had things locked down, but the origin poll lockdown was a great idea. And we did put some other rate limiting rules in place, but it's that thought process of like, wait a minute, is there a better way? Could we enhance what we're doing already? And that was a great example of, we had a web application firewall in place, but we could have it do more. When you mentioned it, I was just like light bulb moment, like, oh my God, yeah, that would just cut off all the issues at the source, which would be incredible. And then it doesn't really matter. Now, we still do things like multi-factor authentication and all that good stuff, strengthen WordPress. But that's like one of many different ways to use Cloudflare, right? And integrate it. And we try to look at it from a holistic approach. I think locking down Linux environments or any environment is key, right? But if it's done in a way, like you mentioned, that old client where their VC firm came in, they had it, but they had all these open pathways still. And that does defeat the purpose. And our mission is we don't want that. And I think we do that, through standardization, the integrations that we build out, right, to achieve these things. So we're taking that human error element out. We can respond faster, but then also make sure we're leveling up our default kind of standard configuration. And what I've noticed with you is that, like the rest of the team members, you never rest on your laurels. So it's like, okay, this is great. Now we achieved this, but like, wait a minute, how do we make it better? You talk to Hit and Sandeep all the time about but what's next? And welcome aboard to the team. You've been really pushing us to a whole new level with Cloudflare Enterprise solution stacks that we offer. What are some of the things that you're working on now that really excites you for either our customers or Verdant, project-wise, or initiatives to increase our capabilities?
So a new project actually came into the pipeline. I met with Lumu today, and they chose us as a partner to develop some new technology or integrations, I should say, with Cloudflare. And what that will hopefully allow us to do is deploy this Cloudflare One client, formerly Cloudflare Warp client. And that client will be able to then communicate with Cloudflare's sophisticated firewall rule set. And Lumu will be able to detect if there's any traffic that's going to a malicious endpoint and automatically reconfigure in the cloud Cloudflare's services for us to block all of our clients at that point. So our clients will be protected in Cloudflare using Lumu's technology.
So it does that already. We built integrations, which depending on your network stack, firewall, switch, APs, Cisco Meraki being the gold standard, but we can do the same thing where known IOCs get detected, right, and the solution orchestrates and creates a block rule, right, at
Correct.
different levels.
Yeah.
Either at CrowdStrike, the endpoint, at the firewall. But this allows us to do that, not only that standard package, right, and there's other stuff that we have in place, create those block rules, but also with that zero trust network you're saying, right? So
Correct.
that zero trust network becomes that remote, go as you want, virtual firewall network, secure network, no matter where the endpoint is in the world, no matter what internet connection they connect to.
That is exactly correct. Doesn't need to be behind a Meraki.
Right, exactly. And that's super cool.
Very.
And it gives our clients a lot of flexibility, but it increases their security quite a bit, I would imagine, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now when they're in a Starbucks, right, and they're going not on their own decision to a malicious site, right, they can be blocked by Cloudflare using Lumu's technology, even if it doesn't have a Meraki firewall that we've integrated at that Starbucks.
I just love that, right? And it goes to our mission too, where as we're being brought into larger and larger organizations where we can augment and help them out, we can remotely configure that, right, pretty quickly and spin that up and manage it, which is great too as well. Our time of deployment drastically reduces when we don't have that physical networks involved, right? Where you have to procure hardware and then you have to ship hardware, you got to pre-configure, you got to rack and stack, right? And then, post cleanup and configuration of some of the advanced tools and integrate. With a Cloudflare One network, yeah, we can deploy that very quickly for a client and get that up and running in parallel and do all kinds of great testing. But you can be a client anywhere in the world. It's not really restricted via geographic boundaries anymore. And that time of deployment is really quick, which I like. But the biggest thing is what I'm hearing is the flexibility and the increased security. They can work anywhere and they can have that quiet confidence that no matter where they're at, what type of Wi-Fi network they're connected to, secure or not secure, that Starbucks, that airport lounge, wherever it might be, they're protected. They have secure access to their cloud network, their data, to their internal network. If they're a hybrid infrastructure, it doesn't matter. And we can not only get the visibility, but we can manage that and then in turn, give them that remote access and ease without having to interact with the end user. The client doesn't have to start the VPN client anymore, which is always the kind of the Achilles heel. Like, okay, we have this great secure network. We have this VPN, but the client has to start it up. They have to log in. They have to authenticate. And that goes away because the way you configure our default package with Cloudflare One, with it integrated already with Jump Cloud, it's single sign-on. It just runs.
I forget it's on all the time.
Right.
Sometimes I do need to disable it for testing purposes, and I forget it's on. And that's the way it should be.
That's how it should be.
Yeah.
Thanks for that explanation. And I think that is a really key difference in how we do things and go about business, and how we're trying to push that, right? We have it, but we want it to be better, right? How do we make it better? And I want to go back to that first example of restricting the origin pools and sources to our Linux web server environment for secure WordPress hosting. And that solution that you suggested in some of the advanced rate limiting rules and other things to protect, it killed that brute force attack instantly, and it has not come back up, which in turn allows that web server not have to be busy with that type of stuff, right? So our site's faster, the server's faster. For us too, we host many different sites, and it helps the infrastructure for all of our clients as well. And it's just not Verdant. We have those protections in place now for all the clients that we have hosted in a shared environment or even a dedicated environment if they pay for that. But I couldn't believe the performance benefit. And I didn't realize oh yeah, because all this stuff's happening and it's hitting the server. We're going to filter this out before it even hits the server. So I think that was an added benefit to all that I didn't even realize. Where I was looking, as the business owner at cost, more RAM, more CPUs, more faster disk drives, right, or SSDs. We can avoid that just by using existing technology just a little bit better or in a different way. So, thank you for that and making that suggestion and making it happen. But that's the Verdant difference. It's we're constantly looking at things, looking at the logs, and proactively making these adjustments for our clients day in, day out. We're looking at the logs. We knew that there was brute force was going on, right? Where other providers, they have no idea until a breach happens. And then they go back and are like, oh yeah, this has been going on for weeks. And I think that's the big difference. And then in the very novel ways, you and the team are able to kind of have those light bulb moments. And, it's that innovative approach to things. And it allows you guys to be very nimble, in your suggestions and the things that you guys do for our clients and also for us internally. And I can speak as almost a client in this standpoint of we're utilizing these services too to help us. This prevented and stopped a brute force attack from hitting our servers, period. I think they kind of moved on. They kind of figured out some of the things that we put in place.
Yeah, and locking down your endpoints actually prevents bots from going directly to them. So that's where you're going to notice your biggest change, right? So when it's a targeted attack, they're going to come at you by looking up information about your company or domain name. That's how they can come and attack at the Cloudflare edge, right? It's finding your actual IPs that are supposed to be hidden by Cloudflare. If you have it configured correctly, those automated bots are hitting those all day long because they don't care who you are as a company. They're just going out and hitting IP addresses. And that's that big hole that a lot of companies leave in place. So you have to lock down those endpoints. Only allow Cloudflare's proxy servers to talk to those endpoints.
It makes sense, right? And to be honest, I'm surprised more marketing agencies, they just want all traffic, period, right? To try to boost up their SEO scores. But is it the right traffic? And I challenge our marketing provider all the time. It's well, wait a minute, all these bad bots, we need to filter that out. That means nothing from the standpoint of, is our SEO strategy successful or not? We filter it out. Now, some marketing providers hate that, right? Because it really makes them have to work because, some of the gains they might get from month to month, right? The bad stuff is now gone. So it's actually legitimate eyeballs. For me, I like it. I don't want that junk hitting our stuff. And I want to make sure that I can go home and rest at night, not having to worry about that for our organization, but also our clients, right? Because it's just something inherently we're doing and just taking that kind of best approach in how we roll things out.
Yeah, and the good bots are still allowed. So Cloudflare actually has a program. And if you are a developer of a good bot, you can actually register your bot with their program. And that way, any of the bot rules that you configure at the Cloudflare edge will allow in those good known bots.
That's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, because obviously, especially with AI search engines and everything else, right? There's all kinds of bots that you actually want to index and hit your site and allow. So thank you for making that point. Let's talk about another innovative technology stack that we just make native and standardize in our solution set, which is patch management. But it's the concept of having a risk-based vulnerability scanning on your network tied in with an automatic autonomous patching cycle based on risk store. And it doesn't happen just one Tuesday every month. Everyone knows Patch Tuesday, right? But we want this to be real time and patching based on risk in real time as well. And that's something that we do. And we're trying to push the envelope with aligning with other vendors that are utilizing AI and what we feel is kind of industry leading to take it even further. Why is vulnerability scanning good and why is patching good? But why is the concept of tying those together, so it's risk-based, a good thing that clients should look at?
Now, risk-based assessment, especially in AI-powered risk-based assessment, in my opinion, is going to be very important in the future because that is who your adversaries are.
Right.
They're going to be, at some point, AI models, right? And that's kind of a scary future to look at, right? When AI can do something that a human would have taken a week or two to do within minutes,
Right.
You now have an entire force of junior level hackers at your disposal. And I'll put this into a real world situation. My own engineering experience, several years ago, I started using AI. I started using Codex and an AI model in Codex. I've recently switched to VS Code. And that allowed me as an engineer to take something that would normally be, let's say, 16 hours of engineering time. I can now accomplish that in 30 minutes to an hour.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible, but it's scary because now we know that not only are there going to be individuals out there that are currently malicious actors that are going to be more efficient at it, but we're going to have individuals that don't have that experience that maybe now start dabbling in it because of AI models. And that's the really scary part. You've heard of like vibe coding before, which is a more legitimate way to be using AI models. But let's start thinking of the malicious vibe coders now. They're just bored one weekend and are like, hey, I wonder what I could get this AI model to do and what could it poke around and find for me on the internet. And it could literally create a whole new generation of hackers and more efficient hackers too. I know that kind of deviated a bit from your original topic.
It really doesn't. And we'll bring Sandeep, our president and CISO, on, and he can talk more about this because he's really pushing the organization in these areas, many different areas. And this is a major one of his kind of current initiatives to expand on what we're doing. But it's that scariness right there that traditional just static patching or a static just vulnerability scan, like once a quarter, audit prep once a year, isn't good enough nowadays. And it needs to be a real-time scanner, or at least run multiple times in a given day, at least daily, but really a real-time scanner, but then real-time patching. Patching can't just wait once a month, one Tuesday out of every month, because that attack vector is bigger. And like you said, you could have an army of junior hackers now within minutes be able to look at vulnerabilities and start to try to exploit that. And if there's something that can be remediated through a patch or virtualizing and containerizing an application to fix that, that's really important. I look at manufacturing, right? There's how many times you run into an application, we try to virtualize a server and there's a Windows 7 application in manufacturing or a Windows XP application, right? And the operating system, you can't get rid of it, right? The vendor doesn't have a build or a version that will run on a current operating system, let alone a patch for whatever libraries they might be using underneath that application. And so, I think remediation strategies you have to be able to take into account, right, that you could have that. And we see it all the time in the wild. And we just can't turn that application off. That would be disruptive to that business. But we can have technology to virtualize that and containerize that and kind of run that in a shell, right? So it can't infect your ZTNA network, your cloud network, your physical network, right? And mitigate that response. And that should also be built in to what we believe is the next gen of real-time vulnerability and autonomous patch management, right? And remediation, that real-time remediation. That remediation should have that segmentation, virtualization, containerization of an app that just, for whatever reason, like it's old. We can't replace it, and there's not a effective replacement at this given time, but the organization still has to run it. So how do you further mitigate that, right? I appreciate your time today. Welcome to the team. Thank you for joining Verdant. You have really enhanced what we're doing and pushing us to new levels. And it's been a lot of fun just collaborating with you on things. You really create the light bulb moments for myself and the leadership team, but it's been a lot of fun. I get this warm kind of chill feeling that I only got when I was producing music at a young age. When a song comes together, you just feel this like, wow, I'm part of something and we're delivering and it together, we're really making something great. And I get that all the time when I talk to you and I talk to Sandeep and I talk to Hit. It's really cool. And so that even this conversation, hearing you talk about some of these things, I feel your excitement. And that it's infectious. And it just makes me want to keep on pushing, right? To do better things. And so, thank you for instilling that in Verdant and keep on pushing that. And I appreciate you being part of our team.
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's the passion that I have that drives that excitement.
Yeah, absolutely. The passion is there through and through. So thank you.